Awesome. We are live.
Amazing. Great
And
opening, by the way. Like
yeah, no,
that's fantastic. Way to level it up, buddy.
thank
I
you.
love it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So all right. I have to close down a few windows.
hmm
Make sure that everything is okay. All right, everyone. How are you? Good
Good,
morning
good morning.
and good afternoon,
Uh, well, for some of
depending on
us.
where you're joining from. That's
Yeah.
awesome, Matt. You have no idea how many people have reached out to me saying that you have not done a live with Matt for a long time. So, right? So,
Well, I guess we should kind of fill people in on what's happened in life over the past year. Eh? It's been a busy year for both of us,
oh
hasn't it?
yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Changing brokerages and shit. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and sort of refocusing on how we do businesses and where we're doing our businesses and our focuses, right? I think it's been an incredible year of transitions, right? And I think last year was a great year to make transitions. It was a quieter real estate year. It was definitely one without extremes
Hmm.
in any direction and predictability. To an extent, we knew rates were coming down. We knew that that houses weren't going to be selling really. We knew that there was a slowness in the market, and that was a great year to, at least in business,
Hmm.
adjustments, because there's a predictability in place. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first major thing that we talk about with 2025 on, and predictability is right out the window, and I think that shouldn't shock anybody.
Why do you say that, right? So, like people still ask me, how is the market going in 2025? What do you expect? And we still have a question, how is the housing market looking
Mhm.
in Ajax, right? So, when you say that predictability is out of the window, what makes you say that?
Yeah, we saw in the last Trump administration that this is a government that thrives on chaos,
Hmm.
and they utilize uncertainty as a political weapon,
Hmm.
right? They use it to keep their friends and foes off foot. They use it as an instability feature for everybody, right? In order to pass agendas that is beneficial towards that government. And unfortunately, in my opinion, that doesn't always line up with what's best for the government is best for the people, right?
Hmm.
And it's definitely not an international, it's best for people
Hmm.
situation. As a Canadian, I am concerned. I'll be
That's a
outright.
top concern as a
Yeah,
Canadian.
tariffs, absolutely tariffs.
Tariffs.
At this point in the game, we have worked extremely hard to bring inflation numbers down. Right,
Hmm.
our inflation is awesome. 1.8 is actually too low.
Hmm.
Right, we overreacted
Hmm.
to bring inflation under control by raising interest rates. Right now, the inflation registered 1.8%. Last month, year over year. That's actually below the 2% threshold that they're shooting for, right? And keep in
Right.
mind, it's not 2% is the target; it's 2 to 3% is the target,
Hmm.
and that's a healthy inflation level, right? If a concern would be, are you moving towards deflation, right? And if we were continuing on this track, that would be a concern with lower GDP numbers, with lower employment numbers, with all these things in place. There would be a concern. However, the big scary word in the room right now is tariffs, right?
What are you
And
most concerned about when it comes to that? Do you really feel that he'll do that?
yeah, I think so. I think we saw it last time, that there
Yeah.
was tariffing, and past is history. Our past is prologue, right? We can assume similar actions. And the one thing we've learned from Donald Trump, is that he's honest.
Hmm.
Funny enough, he's actually probably the most honest person I've ever met. If he says he's going to do something, he's probably going to try and do it, right?
And even if he's not, even let's say he's posturing about putting 25% tariffs on everything, which is not possible, right? He can't do it on everything because
No.
oil becomes expensive and everything.
But there will be certain things that will definitely get hit.
Right. So, I think he needs something.
Yeah.
So I think that's the signal that, a lot of people are talking about. Maybe not, tariffs, but last time in 2018, when he put tariffs on aluminum, and then there was an agreement, I think, around that November mark where he came up with the USMCA agreement, right? So the tax treaty that.
And so this is where I'm a little excited that we're having a bit of a government shift here in Canada, because what we don't want is a reactionary government. We don't want a government that's going to go and respond with tariffs, because that's going to cause a lot of problems. I don't need the Canadian government yelling, "Oh, well, we'll tariff you back." No, that's stupid. Figure out what the man's after. And meet on the middle ground, or a middle ground, or accommodate where the concern is, right? Is the concern border control? Is the concern, that they feel like there is unequal trade opportunities? Do we have to go back to the trade tables, right? There's a solution to the problem that is not Canada throws counter tariffs on things, right? And that's where it becomes inflationary for us, is if we start tariffing back, right? Because you and I do not need to spend more money on American goods, which is a lot of our consumption base, right? And that's not an okay counter. The counter is figure out what the man wants, right? Figure out what his government objective is, just like you said, right? With aluminum and stuff like that, right? Figure out what the problem is and counter back. So I'm a little excited to see, Mark running for the leadership. I think,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am. He's actually probably one of the smartest people to step up into Ottawa, especially when it comes to economics. And I think there's some benefit there.
I think he's probably the only one, and I'm at the risk of, obviously it's a live, we can't edit it out, but at the risk of, sounding, political, I think he's probably the one person who can save Liberals right now.
Yes, I think so too.
If he runs, right? So Mark Carney, right? So he was the one who led the Bank of Canada at the time of subprime crisis.
Correct, and then actually helped with Bank of England through Brexit and things like that. He's a individual has shown that, and again, not to be too political, I'm just going to talk about a little of the history here and why it's relevant to today. He's shown that he can react to crisis. And I think that that's what's necessary right now, is a good crisis manager, because I think it can go either way right now. We are in a tipping point, our title for today's talk, right? Definitely is a possibility, right? It's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee this year, right? Anyone that says that they know what's happening ain't been reading their history books. Nobody's going to know, but we can assume, we can make guesses, we can, make educated guesses as far as what some of the actions that we're going to deal with are. So
let's talk about this one, right? So on the screen that we see risk of tariffs and reduction in immigration numbers. So let's say, some tariffs are put, not everything. And we already know that, immigration numbers are bound to go down with all the temporary residents going back. Now, is this a good time to buy? Now, I'll talk about, a little bit about my thoughts, because I did share that in my video. From an immigration standpoint, there have been articles saying 5 million people are returning. Now, it's not possible 5 million, because if you just do the math, that's $50 billion in tax go out of the window. Not just that, we don't have enough flights.
No, there's not enough planes to accommodate that.
So 5 million is just a number that was under pressure talked in the courts, but it's the totality of yes, overall immigration will go down as per the numbers, and that's probably not the worst thing to happen, given how stressed the infrastructure is right now.
Correct.
And I think real estate in your view.
Yeah, in the past 5 years, we've had a massive net gain in population, right? And there will be a continuous net gain in population. Immigration's not going into the negatives. It's just increasing the amount that's coming, right? And so we're trying to get more towards an equilibrium, right? And there is massive strain on infrastructure. The number one thing that controls how quickly and where you can build. Do you know what that thing is, Nev? The number one thing that controls where and what you can build. Water. Water access.
Water access, yeah.
Is a municipality locked in, has water access, right? We saw that with Halton Region recently, as they got an enhanced water line, and then builds start going up all over Milton and Halton area, right? Because they now have utility access, right? When we talk about things like the proposed 413 highway and things like that, that's physical access to where they want to build, right? That highway is not a relief highway. It's a, hey, you can access where we want to build next highway, right? And everything's about either can you access it or can you bring resources to it, right? And so that's always been a limit in the construction ability, right? With a decreased number of people coming in, sure, that's going to slow down the speed at which the available housing gets picked up, but we still have a bit of a supply crunch, right? And yes, are there a lot of listings on market today currently? Sure, right? But that's because we have an uncertainty in a buying pool, because there's still a lot of people that if they could, they would buy. Right.
But the inventory is, a lot of the inventory is in the asset class that, like people who want to live in, I'm talking about condos here, that's where the inventory is, most of it. And, investors are not in the market. And correct me, Matt, if I'm wrong, with all the uncertainty, in not just housing, but also in businesses, right? These business owners were investors, and those business owners are trying to save their businesses right now.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of inventory in the condo market right now. There are no bidding wars or less bidding wars, only, fancy looking homes are getting bids, but, it's not that crazy right now, despite the interest rates, coming down, because the investors are not there in the market.
Correct.
So it's only the first-time home buyers or people who want to upgrade who are buying.
The comment I've heard quite a lot is that we're dealing with a capital crunch, right? That there isn't a lot of mobility of money at the moment, that people are holding on to their funds, right? They're using safe investment vehicles right now. There's very low risk tolerance at the moment. And that makes sense if you look at the environment we're in, right? We're going to invest in what we consider a sure thing, That's why we're out of real estate at the moment, right? That's why there's been a pullback in that, and to be honest, the taxation concerns on capital gains, there's definitely issues when we deal with the landlord-tenant board right now, the severe issues that are causing people to just not want to invest in real estate, and you cannot get a cap rate that's worth investing in on anything right now across Ontario. If I wanted to be cash flow positive on a condo, right? And I like condos. You know me, I love condos. They're easy to manage. They're great property, that you can turn them pretty quick, right? But you have to be almost 50% down to cash flow on them. And my rule is always really simple. If I'm not cash flowing, it's not an investment. It's a gamble, right? Because your return on your investment's in the cash flow first, right? And so if you're not cash flow positive, you're gambling. Right? So I think, we're in that situation where, there's a lot of hesitancy, and that's okay. I think it's okay to be hesitant. I think it's okay to be thoughtful. I think it's okay to be a little bit more slow to act, because people weren't that in 2022. They were quick to act and not to think, right? And, I've seen portfolios of real estate as big as almost $20 million that were underwater on everything. I've seen people with severe negative net worths. And that's not
over leveraged, right? So
over leveraged severely.
People think, that the market is only going to go up. People over leverage. And I think we have talked about this. But just, to answer and circle back to this question, your thoughts, if it's a good time to buy. My thoughts are that if you are buying for yourself, it's probably, a really good time to buy because you're the only person who's buying. First time home buyers or people
Correct.
who want to buy for themselves are the only people in the market. So you're not competing with a lot of people.
No.
But if you are an investor, like Matt said, I think it's okay to, be on the edge with what happens with the tariffs and immigration numbers. We kind of know that, they're going to go down. But, it's also important to understand what is going down. It's the temporary workers, students, work permit holders. They were not going to buy a home. They're just going to rent it. So as an investor, all the more reason you should be careful with your money right now, purely because these were the people who are going to rent those houses, and we are already seeing the rentals going down, not just in like outskirts, but also in downtown Toronto area, which historically.
That's such a great target market to get a taste of what's happening, right? Because if you are having a shortage of renters in the best physical location, right? Because downtown Toronto is the best physical location to rent. Transit, amenities, all these things are right at your doorstep, right? It's a very convenient lifestyle. So if you're having problems finding tenants for that, you're going to have an extremely difficult time finding rural tenants, right? Small town tenants, things of that nature, right? This will turn around. This will turn around. That it's a matter of time. I was talking with a friend of mine this week, and he's younger and looking to purchase his first home, and he asked the same question, right? Is it a good time to buy? And the answer is always going to be that's dependent on you. When you're buying your own property, it's not is the market good to buy. It's are you good to buy? Right? Are you positioned for it, right? Is your income stabilized, right? And predictable and, consistent, right? Are you in a quote unquote recession proof job? Can you be, right? Can you position yourself to be better in that? Do you have an adequate down payment? 5% is not an adequate down payment. I'm going to tell you that right now. You and I have talked about this since almost day one, right? That if you can try for 10, right? Try for more down payments, always better, right? If you have to do 5, then do 5. But in any other situation, bring more down payment to the table if you can, right? And are you buying, shopping, looking in your affordability, right? And that doesn't mean maxing out, right? Because yes, I can afford 39%, 44% of my pre-tax income on paper when I qualify. But it's really simple. 35% of my after tax.
Yeah,
that's really where I should be buying, right? And it's one of those things. Like the messaging is consistent from buying in a thoughtful way.
Yeah,
right?
And when the market is up, automatically your situation worsens because the income is not enough to buy, and therefore you don't buy. When the market is down, because your situation can still be worse with your job being on the line, but if you have a stable job, when the market is down, that's probably now you are in that range of 35% affordability, you are stable, and that's why you buy. So the how much we talk about this question, the answer will always be the same. It's about you when you're buying for yourself. As an investor, definitely it's something that I hold. I'm a massive fan of Calgary, by the way. Matt, you already know that. But right now with tariffs, I'll be a little bit more hesitant till the time it's clear what's happening to tariffs on oil and natural gas, and because Alberta, even though it has come down in its reliance on this industry, but if there are certain things that are happening and a trade war happens, Alberta would be probably one of the markets which will be hit.
I think Canada's unfortunate in a few ways, right? One, it's a massive energy producing country, right? And it's not energy producing in the smart way as if we were in the Middle East somewhere where we can refine and export our goods easily, right? We have one export market currently, which is south, right? We are reliant on American refineries for our crude, right? We don't have refineries really in Canada, not to the extent necessary to turn that oil into something usable, right? And so we're forced to export at a discount, right, to the United States, right? A lot goes down there, right? Almost all of our export goes down there, right? Are there plans in motion to pipeline out to BC, to get that out into the Asian markets and stuff like that? Sure, right? But that's not going to be sufficient to fix the export reliance, right? As an export-based nation, right? For almost everything that matters, lumber, oil, right? Heavy metals, right? Tariffs can be damaging, and the provinces that are most dependent on that, Alberta being one of the major ones, there could be things outside of our control that will impact our markets, right? And will impact housing, right? And you and I have always kind of differed on our opinions of Alberta and Calgary and whatnot. But I think in general, yes, it's a relatively safer small market within Alberta because Calgary itself has diversified, right? I think you go anywhere outside of there and you're in danger, right? Because there's not tons of diversity outside of this.
Absolutely.
The major
which is absolutely the reason why I'm not a huge fan of Edmonton. Even so now, Calgary is still, even though they are struggling with unemployment rates, and it'll be stupid not to look at that. 8% unemployment is high unemployment, right? So it is struggling because the amount of immigrants that have come to Calgary, not just from outside of Canada, but also, inter-provincial immigration that has happened. The infrastructure and the jobs were not there to support that, right? So, but still, I feel that Calgary has diversified, like you said. But if there are tariffs, that are put on oil, it will impact, Calgary as well. More so Edmonton, than any other market, right? So,
there's a lot of 6-figure jobs that are dependent on the oil market, and Canada itself runs on the oil market. As green and eco-friendly and environmentalist as we want to be, we are an oil producing nation, and we're one of the largest oil producing nations, right? And that will be a major determining factor on what the next couple of years looks like, right? And it's just unavoidable. It doesn't matter what kind of taxes are in play. It doesn't matter what government's in play. None of this stuff directly impacts. What impacts is going to be the cost of crude. Doesn't matter who's in office.
I'm actually making a detailed video for anyone who wants to look at tariffs and how it's going to impact and what's happening. It'll be coming out tomorrow, so that's amazing. I have just made it.
Good timing, right?
Absolutely. So I just want to touch upon this question first. When do you expect the condo market in GTA to crash?
I think it has.
Yeah,
I think it has. Yeah. I think what you're looking at in Toronto right now is a crashed market. We have lost the last 5 years of growth, essentially. We're back to 2019, give or take, as far as our numbers and our activity goes, right? We've lost on average, about $100,000 in value. That is a crash. When people talk about crashes, I don't know if the image in their head is, investors losing their minds and jumping off balconies or not. It's not 1929, right? It's not a stock market crash. There aren't people killing themselves, right? Physically, metaphorically, maybe, and here's the thing, right? If I wanted to go and buy a condo at a discount today, I'm going to buy a condo at a discount today. I'm in a crash. Has it bottomed? Maybe. I don't know. You never know the bottom of the market until you're gone up, right? Is there going to be enhanced activity this year? Sure. Will it be enough to bring us out of the bottom? I don't know. Time will tell. Does it have further it can drop? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Possible, right? It is possible. We don't even know, all the people who are going back. How would that impact the rental market? And 50% of everything that was bought in the last 3 years was with investors. So we don't know how their businesses, would do. It's so many different levels, and we are not even talking about just tariffs, right? So there's so many different, things that matter. Right now, like micro level. Macro is different. Macro is easy to know about. You can search about tariffs and there'll be a number, but there's so many micro things. Like, let's say if immigrants go out, and if there's mass unemployment because of tariffs, what would happen to these retail stores and restaurants? And those restaurant owners were the investors in real estate. What happens then, right?
Exactly.
That's the micro that I'm talking about here.
Well, and one of the biggest one of the biggest real estate investors, unfortunately, are realtors.
Mm.
And if their businesses are down,
Yeah.
and if they're feeling crunch, and I apologize to any realtors watching, but most realtors I know are notoriously bad at managing money. Because they're a salesperson, and being salespeople ourselves, we knew that we had to build a business structure around our sales to ensure consistency, right? But the majority of salespeople are high earners in sporadic times, right? And they had a couple great years, and they, started, you know, drinking or smoking or eating their own products, right? And got into the markets and invested poorly, right? And, I'm shocked by the number of realtors with underwater portfolios right now, because they essentially bought what they were selling. I think the past year and a bit, 2 years of quieter market has caused a lot of those properties to get back to market now, right? And keep in mind, there's a lot of equity that was developed on things that were bought early 2020 to end 2021, right? Then we had a couple years of equity growth, so there was room to take losses for a period of time, right? Most of that equity growth has now dried up, right? So now we're in a situation, and mortgages are coming up for renewal, that now there's no position remaining to draw money, to safety network. Any of that stuff isn't there, right? There could be more product coming back to market. Toronto, we saw the investor pullout with the Airbnb rule changes. That was, if you look at what the most common units on market are, they were the most common Airbnb units, right? So that plus, right, created the situation we see in Toronto, right? In the greater GTA, of course, we saw issues with overpriced constructions, right? Things that weren't worth what you were buying, right? A lot of people got carried away with inflating the price of real estate and letting it go out of its value, right? But I think this is this opportunity, that people talk about and regret not getting involved when they're positioned well, right? This is what people have been asking for a long time. We want prices to come down. One of the buildings that I own in, right? You're almost $100,000 cheaper today than at the height of the market to get in there. That's a great discount. I would be very hard pressed to find more opportunities to give you $100,000. And the nice thing about real estate is, once a market's hit a price point or a threshold, we know that over time it will return to that price point.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee,
It's not that we are done with our supply issues, right? So yes, let's say 1 million immigrants go, leave Canada in the next 3 years, but 1 million immigrants will also come to Canada in the next 3 years. So the supply problem will remain as is. And in fact, with the immigration and how they are positioning now, and it's a cycle, right? They positioned it in 2015 as well. They are repositioning it back to when it was positioned in 2015, when liberals came into power, and conservatives actually said that express entries. They are again going back, to the basics of immigration. In fact, there'll be high quality immigration that will.
And that's the scarier part to people that think that this is going to get better, is that now you're going to be qualified. It's not students coming. It's not people that are scraping to get by, borrowing to make their numbers so that they look okay on paper. It's going to be people who can qualify for 6-figure jobs. It's going to be your favorite clientele, let's be honest, that are the next batch coming, right? And they're going to be a little bit more diverse, probably. And it's going to be a shock to anyone that thought that housing was going to be fixed by decreasing immigration numbers.
So, I read somewhere that, it's okay now if we are not able to build the amount of homes that we need to build. Now, and, I also heard somewhere, and this obviously is not true, we still need to build, 4 million homes in the next, few years. But the funniest thing that I heard was that, the new government will now be able to, because, the new government will be able to build homes inside of 1 year. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think if there's a change in government, they'll just be able to build homes like this?
So what we've learned from history is that the federal government doesn't build homes. Neither does the provincial government, but municipal governments do. And the biggest problem on municipalities is infrastructure.
Yeah.
Have they updated water? Have they updated hydro? Have they updated transport? Are there enough doctors? Are there enough schools? Are there enough hospitals? And the problem remains the same, that on the micro level, nothing's being done, right? On the municipal level, nothing's passing to make it much easier. The provincial is the next most influential when it comes to housing, right? And yes, they've, allowed changes on fourplexes, up to fourplexes. They've allowed, a lot of permitting workarounds. They've made it easier to expand the housing that's there, but they haven't made it easier to build more housing because they haven't remedied the root problem: water, doctors, hydro, roads. That's what controls housing, transit. Not, hey, I can throw money at it. That's great. Can you actually lead to an end result, right? I'm very wary of construction as a whole, right? And the processes that go into it, and how long it actually takes to change infrastructure and upgrade infrastructure, right?
And how about the scarcity of construction workers? Like, I read somewhere that 84, so they'll have to come up with and train 84% more construction workers across different fields in order to build the homes that they are planning to build.
It's crazy. Like, there's so much missing in the conversation, and it's very easy to say that a new government's going to fix everything because it's a new government, but they can't. I have heard no plans to increase the number of tradespeople. I've heard no plans to greatly overhaul our infrastructure, right? I've heard some plans, but not great ones, about how to increase medical. I've heard very little in the way of schooling and education, right? And these things that matter for driving populations around, right? We don't need more single-family detached homes today. What we need is the facilities in order to ensure that families will move into those neighborhoods well, right? And that's where I have a concern. And you look at a lot of the builds that are happening, right? And there's this whole, community build thing, right? Where they try to build a community as they're building, right? And that's great to an extent, but nobody's investing in the early stages. And with the investors out of the market, a lot of the builders aren't building, right? And so you need to get the investors back and capital moving and all this stuff again, right? And that's hard, and it's hard to drive the sentiment. The negativity in the market will be the doom of the next 4 years. You and I not putting our cash into new development real estate is going to cause there to be no new development real estate. I've stopped. I've got my pre-con that I believe in and think is good. The one that we're in, and I think that's a great build. And but I've stopped looking for new ones. And that's a weird thing because I've never not been looking for new opportunities.
For so many years, right? You're like, I have to buy one, and I have to do one every year, right? So, and for so many years, so like, what are you putting your money? I'm just curious. What are you thinking of?
This year, and probably for the foreseeable future, there's a thing called a Mortgage Investment Corporation, a MIC, right? And MICs are golden. They are a little bit more sophisticated of an investment vehicle. They are private lending. I am a firm believer that private lending is an important part of the lending environment in Canada. It solves a lot of problems. The MIC I invest in is focused on construction. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, right? And I believe construction is one of the most important things that we can put our money into, right? And so, the MIC that I work with is a construction-based MIC. They can allocate about 20 to 25% of their available cash towards construction projects. And I use them for financing large scale renovations, developments, things like that when I'm lending, right? And they generally have a safe return of somewhere between 8 and 10%.
Yeah.
And that's great. I'll take it. And you can invest through a TFSA. You can invest through an RSP, right? You can use the tax savings vehicles and self-direct it into private lending, and so that's where we're putting our money today, right? Second spot, of course, and I'm always shopping, is in the US.
Okay.
As a Canadian, there's great benefits to purchasing in the US markets, and there's really interesting lending tools that exist for us, right? They're going to force us to find cash flow positive properties because I don't have an American credit. I don't have an American banking. I don't have an American income, right? I need to, bring capital to the table. I need to bring 30%, generally, somewhere between 30 and 35%, which, to be honest, that's what you should be investing with. Right, not 20%, not less than that, right? You should actually bring a strong deposit with you, right? And the properties have to cash flow at a 1.2 to 1 ratio generally, right? And for those that don't know what debt servicing ratios, things like that, right? I have to bring about 20% more income in the rents than my expenses. That's generally it. When I say a 1.2 to 1, right? That's what I mean. And on 30% down with that ratio, I can qualify to buy a home in the US and use it as a rental property. I don't need to income qualify. I don't need to credit qualify.
Yeah.
Love it. The type of lending that's available for a Canadian has actually created the safeguards to ensure that your investment's a good investment. And those are the rules we should be following when we're investing in real estate anyways. Does it cash flow? Does it cash flow well?
On our first property in US, when we bought, we were at 35. We did 30% down payment at the time. It was a private lender, and I was like, okay, this sounds so amazing, right? We have 30% equity in a home. Like, why can't we do more of this, right? Definitely, that this is good. Mix, for those of you who don't know, I just copied and pasted the most common definition of a MIC. Do read about that and do your own research. It's not crazy 30% returns. It's not a meme coin. It's not Trump coin. It's not Bitcoin, right? So, but it's gonna give you a sustainable return in a safe way. But it's not as safe as GIC, as cash in the account, or so. Again, do your own research when you're doing this, but definitely. I also wanted to touch upon, a little bit, because we have not talked about, the new mortgage rules for insured mortgages. And I wanted to touch base upon that. So for this question specifically, I would recommend that you book a call, growwithnav.com. Just book a call from there and we'll do the numbers. I think it will be 4 to 4.5%, 4 to 4.5 times your gross income, but that's your eligibility. Affordability is something that you should talk to an agent. But how about the 30-year amortization on insured mortgages? Like, what's your
way past due, way past due.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then again, I like to take my cues from the US, right? They have a 30-year option.
Yeah.
That's always there and been there for a long time, right?
That's a 30-year, like you can take a 30-year.
Correct. You can take a 30-year term with them, right? And then, and their amortization and terms are the same, right? Yes. We have a difference here where our terms and our amortization are separate, right? You've got 5-year terms within a 30-year repayment window, right? And I am a believer of going mortgage free over time, right? I think that you should pay off your home, right? And 30 years is a reasonable amount of time. If you're starting at 30 and you're done at 60, that's reasonable, right? So can you create a 30-year game plan on your owner-occupied property? Sure. Absolutely. Is 25 better? Of course, right? When it comes to the amount of interest you're going to pay over time, right? But amortization is the biggest controller of cash flow. Amortization does more than interest rates when it comes to how much your monthly payment's going to be. And that difference between a 25 and a 30-year amortization can be significant, even if you have to pay a premium for it, right? You could be $200-$300 difference per month, right? And that doesn't sound like a lot today, but over the next 60 months, over the next 24 months, right? Over a period of time, those dollars add up. And can you redeploy those dollars to more profitable, better things, right? Or keeping and the most profitable thing you can do with your dollars is keeping yourself out of debt. Right. So I'm a big fan of anything that enhances your cash flow abilities, right? Going over $1 million on your first home is crazy.
With less than 20% down.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not, I'm mixed opinion on it. Do I think that there's a value for, that property that's $1,000,001?
And with a, like a secondary suite?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, great, fine. Yeah, that makes sense. If you're a little bit over $1 million because you're in downtown Toronto and trying to buy a townhouse as your first place, fine.
Yeah.
Right. If your first home is 1,499, we should probably have a conversation about realistic expectations on your starter property, because you're probably way up here when the wiser choice is probably to start here. Right. I think in upgrades and repurchases and things like that, as your means increase, by all means, get to that $1.5 million, right? As you've got investments, as your liquidable, on things grow, by all means, into those properties. But don't start there. You're not, the average person will change their home 3 times, at least 3 times, right? It's now getting to about 7 over the course of your lifetimes that you will do mortgage reassessments or refinancing or upgrading, right? And so your start is not your finish. If it's your start, but it's going to determine how well you finish. Because if you get a strong foundation, if you develop good base, right? If you have strong investments, and real estate that you live in is never an investment.
Yeah.
I think anyone who's heard me talk or heard us talk will quickly remember that the house you live in is just your house. It's your home. It's not an investment. It's not your retirement. It's none of these things, right?
There's emotional value attached to it, not monetary, right? So it's all on paper.
Yeah, and so you cannot put all your eggs into that basket. That's not your investment, right? If you have a lot of house and no RSP, you got a problem. If you have a lot of house and an empty TFSA, you got a problem, right? And and I am more a believer in those vehicles today than I have ever been.
Oh yeah.
And as I get older, I recognize the value of having a well-funded retirement account that isn't your home, right?
Liquid. For once, it's liquid. If there's anything that happens health-wise, you need it, or for any reason your business is going down, you lose your job, you can't sell your home. And gone are the days when you can easily take out HELOCs and use that and still debt, right? But you can always expense from your liquidity, which is your TFSAs, and your stock, investments.
Yeah.
And I think it's underrated. And as real estate, people, we have an obligation to tell people that it's not just about real estate, right? We don't
absolutely
our lives, and that's irresponsible to put everything into real estate.
Correct.
There's one question that I just want to address. What excites you about Texas market? So Matt, just so you know, so I made a video on, how I want to learn the Texas market because I already have a team in Ohio and that's going well. But it's not about, for me, it's not about either or. It's about learning a new market and diversifying in terms of the profile of people who go to Texas versus the profile of people that you find in Ohio. Ohio is essentially not a very affluent.
It's very blue collar.
Yes, it's
It's
very blue collar.
very blue collar.
Yeah.
You know, I have a special love for each state. You know, and then you know. You're aware my mom's an American, right? I carry a bit of love towards the United States. You know, I've spent a lot of time there growing up, and you know, I think that each state is its own wonderful, beautiful ecosystem, for better or worse. And then I absolutely love the idea of Texas. Right, Texas is its own monster. Texas is a mindset. Right, it is a personality. It is a living, breathing thing, right? And you just ask anyone from Texas, right, and they will tell you what Texas really is, right? And then the benefit there is, great employment opportunities, phenomenal employment opportunities, right? Same thing that we, for better or worse, it is the energy center of the United States.
Yeah.
Right. I can't think of any other energy center that I would want to be involved in than the US's. Right. They are the consumer. Right. There is a perceived level of freedom that exists there that may not be anywhere else in the world. Right. I joke I want to eat good food and shoot big guns. Right. So Texas sounds like a great spot to go. Right. And there is something about that, and it's somewhere that is a immigration into state.
Yes.
A net gaining. Right. And has a lot to do with low taxes. Right. Now, keep in mind, property tax is very high. Right. Low income taxes, high property taxes. Right. So it's also somewhere where I would perceive living and working. Right. Low property values, surprisingly. But they're increasing in key markets, right? Dallas, Austin, these areas, the inside of the cities, those values are increasing, but it's also very landlord friendly. I can have you out fast, right? Sheriffs are an amazing thing that we don't really have here that make all the difference investing down there, right? How quickly can you turn someone in Ohio? Pretty fast, right?
4 weeks.
Yeah.
Max 6 weeks.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
You don't need to go to an LTB for that, right? So it's breach of agreement and it would just be handled.
Yeah. It's beautiful, and so there is a benefit when I'm being a property investor to investing in red state property, traditionally red state property, right? Because the rules as written favor the landlord, right? That's awesome from an investor point. Not as great from an end user point because your rental prices are really high. You have to be on edge a little bit. I wouldn't want to be a tenant in a red state, but I definitely want to be a landlord. And I definitely want to be a property owner. And there are a few states that kind of excite me. I'm going to throw a shout out to Kentucky. I like Kentucky, right? I've got a real estate team in Kentucky working there, right? And specifically somewhere like South Bend, right? Because what's near South Bend? Well, Notre Dame, right? Find a good university and stay nearby, right? Find a good employment center and stay nearby, right? Find something, again, my same rules in investing in Canada and Toronto and places like that. Find something of value in the location that's going to draw people to live there. Right. I'm not going to buy in the middle of, cattle country in Texas and expect that that's going to be a good investment unless I'm buying the land and the cows on it. Right. And I am not equipped, having watched all the seasons of Yellowstone, to be a rancher. There's something maybe romantic about the idea, but that's as far as it goes. Right. But do I want to own a multiplex in Dallas? Absolutely, I do. Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we have a question here, and I'll just, there's a question out of this question that we'll talk about. So with max 1 hour commute to downtown Toronto, which area would you both suggest for a budget under $700,000? Don't want a condo. First of all, there's nothing wrong in condos. Second of all, I think Ajax, Pickering, that belt is underrated. And I think you should look at that. Now, I do want to touch upon Kitchener for a bit here. Because I don't know, Matt, how much I've been following Kitchener, but there is a net immigration out of Kitchener. in the last, like
That's
month
not
and a half.
surprising.
That's not
Yeah,
surprising with
no.
all the offices opening.
Yeah.
And honestly, having lived in Kitchener, now for 4 years, and having owned 3 properties here,
Yep.
I would not recommend anyone who is commuting to downtown more than 2 times a week to live in
Yeah.
Kitchener, because it's a hard commute with the
It's
traffic right now on peak hours. It's a hard commute. And even if you take the Go, first of all, not everything is connected to Go in
Yep.
Kitchener. So you can be living, my home right now is 15-minute drive to Go.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee that, wherever the Go, like leaves you, your office is nearby
Mhm.
that. So there's another 15-20 minute walk you probably have to do. So that's a 2 hour commute one way.
Yep.
So don't buy, like
Yeah.
if you're going that far and living like hell, every single day, just because you have a long commute, just don't buy.
Yep.
Buy when you can afford something which is over 700, because you don't want a condo.
Yep.
And that's
I laugh.
that, Matt?
I'm right downtown, right? I'm right in the heart of Toronto, right? It could take me an hour to just go, across the downtown. So I mean, a downtown Toronto commute, once you hit Toronto itself, could be an hour, right? It's hard to say where the smart spots are, right? My one realtor works, Midtown North area, would say Caledonia, that area is really great. Some of my other folks would say, go east, right? Out that direction. Sure. Right. There's Milton, Halton region, that sort of stuff. That's fine. I don't know if there's anything under 7. I don't know if that exists.
Condo townhouses you might be able to find
Maybe,
right
yeah.
now. So there's a small, strata fee or something like that. Not a condo, but a condo townhouse,
Yep.
which is slightly bigger in size, but older, right? So the closer you are. But I really feel that, Ajax, Pickering, that belt is a little bit underrated, and it's always been underrated.
Yep.
And you might be able to find something in the range of 700s, there if you go there.
I'm a bit of and this is my bias. I'm a bit of a downtown purist. If you're coming downtown, live downtown.
Yeah.
If do the condo thing, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's huge benefits to actually, because you can go and get a good starter place for under 700 downtown right now. And there will be value over time there. We've made good money in our household having downtown property that we purchased wisely, right? Change. Commuting sucks. Commuting absolutely sucks. And you've come down to where I am before, and it's stunning out here, right? You can get good real estate, good location, good, access to amenities. I literally live above everything I require.
I've said this many times, that if me and Simran were the only people living in a house, we would never need to go outside of a condo. And if you are living in or working in downtown, then just buy in downtown, right? So and we would always do that. And in fact, that's our retirement plan as well. Live, like on the farm, we do intend to live in the center.
Exactly.
But sometimes, as South Asians, parents come and we need a separate room.
Correct.
You have kids, you need a separate room. You have friends over. So sometimes, it's not practical to buy something which is smaller. That's where most of my clients
and that's where there's actually some really great property types that exist. And maybe you're starting at 7, but that's not where you're going to finish. You're going to want to find the bungalow with the basement suite and the laneway suite ability to grow those and expand those, right? Because it creates the affordability piece in the property for yourself, right? And those are all through, Etobicoke, Scarborough, those locations. They're readily available, that kind of property. In newer areas, newer cities, they are not, right? That design fell out of favor really, after the 70s, 80s.
And I love bungalows. I don't know why they fell out of, it's
the quality of build. It's because they were kind of unique footprints, and everyone was a little different, and and we got into this cookie cutter, small lot, big house, stupid, gross mindset, right? small house, big lot was a thing once upon a time, and that's what you're kind of looking for the expansion and growth, right?
Yeah.
And those are, in my opinion, the best homes, because now I can go laneway. Now I can go, because I don't really need a garage, let's be honest, but
Right.
I can turn that into an apartment. I don't really need a basement if it's just two of us, right? Or two of us plus a kid, or small things. I can put in the separate entrance basement suite if I want to, right? And create additional revenue streams in my home so it's more affordable. And there's lenders out there that will allow you to use the perceived future value of those spaces as your qualifiers.
Yeah.
There's a couple lenders out there that will take that and say, hey, listen, we know you're building it. We've got the plans. We've got all the stuff in front of us. We'll lend on that future value, right?
Yeah.
So they will pay you to build it, essentially. And it's amazing. And yes, does it suck to live in a construction zone? Sure it does. It's not supposed to be easy. Good things aren't easy,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
we have a couple of questions on Calgary. So let's just take that. So
Yeah.
what do you expect from Calgary market as rentals are back to what it was in 20? That's crazy. So Matt, like Calgary has been going in a different direction.
Yes.
Property value wise, it's not come down as much. It's actually increased. And one of the main reasons is the net immigration, like net positive immigration in Calgary. And that's probably not going to stop
No.
because all of the markets, are still very expensive, and the government is very conducive. It's,
You went and moved out to Calgary, bought something out there, and look what happened, Nav.
yeah, I know.
I got a couple places where I'm going to tell you to buy next, and I'm just going to get in there a few days before you.
But the thing with Calgary is that, like I'm a huge proponent of where people are moving.
Yes.
There at least you'll get rentals. I never guarantee appreciation on anything, right? But at least the rental yields are good there. You can still cash flow positive, and some of our clients actually cash flow positive $800 to $1,000, and that's not students, right?
No.
That's not giving to students. That's just buying in strategic locations where you can, again, Airbnb was a thing, but you should not. Airbnb norms have changed. Like all units that were not legal, they're not renewing their Airbnb licenses. So, all those things are gimmicks, and they are really nice things to, look at when you look at Calgary, but you should not, buy because I'm going to Airbnb and that's how I'm going to cash flow positive. So
buy based on the fundamentals.
Yes, because that is a policy dependent decision, right? Yeah. So that's where what to expect from Calgary market. I'm still bullish. I'm just hesitant till the time tariff thing, settles. I'm just hesitant until then. But overall, if there's any market in Canada I want to invest in, that would be Calgary.
Yeah, and if you can afford what you're buying, in good or bad, if you've got a safety network built around yourself, right? If you've got cash flow reserves because you didn't invest everything into real estate, right? You can take ups and downs in markets and be patient. If you can afford what you own, you can take. It doesn't matter what happens to the markets, right? You can weather goods and bads, right? And not get so freaking emotional over real estate purchases, especially rentals. Either it works or it doesn't work. Move on or buy it, right? It's, you don't want real estate. You either buy it or you don't, based on the numbers, right?
And sometimes, Matt, sorry, I'm cutting you, but sometimes people just don't want to buy something because it's very far.
Yeah.
But they would buy something which doesn't make sense over that. So I'll give you an example. So a lot of people come to us and say they're living in Ontario and they're like, okay, I don't want to buy in Calgary. The reason is only that I want to touch and feel and, stay close. And therefore, I want to buy something in Mississauga. And I'm like, okay, you don't want to buy in Calgary because it's far, but you would buy in Mississauga and it cash flow negative. Like you would lose money on a property because you want to touch it. but not buy something which cash flows, because like it doesn't make sense as an investor, right? And these are investors talking about this, right? So I'm like, that's not investment. You're not buying for yourself.
That's gambling.
You're buying on an investment property. It has to be, your numbers have to drive that, not your emotion. And if that's not where we are, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend anyone here, but if that's not where you are, that you are not driven by numbers and you're basing your decision of investment property on emotion, I would recommend that, like, I don't think we are ready to buy, and that's okay.
Not everyone should own real estate.
Yeah.
And and not everyone needs to be successful.
Yeah.
As people that are, deeply invested in real estate ourselves, right? As people that are, from our employment invested in real estate, from all of this, right? I think we can easily say not everyone should own real estate.
For sure.
And the concept that that's the only way to get rich is psychotic. The only way to get rich, by the way, and I think people, underappreciate it, is through your income.
Yeah.
The more money you make, the more money you can invest, the more things you can have, right? Your income is the guarantee to getting rich, not the asset classes you're buying, right? And preserving and controlling that first and foremost, right? Then wise purchases of real estate help.
Mm-hmm.
They will get you richer faster, right? Wise investments into your TFSAs, RSPs, things like that will protect you as you grow your assets, right? And help you retire so you don't have to liquidate, so you have something to pass, right? There's a lot of pieces to it, and investing is a mindset, right? And it's one that can endure ups and downs, or should endure ups and downs, right? It's a 10, 20, 30 year plan. It's not a 1 year plan. There's a lot of people that want to get rich quick.
Yeah.
And that's great. I do too. But I'm not going to base my plan on getting rich quick. I'm going to base my plan on getting rich, right? And getting rich is a lifelong endeavor, right? And I may have a better year this year than last year. I may do more things this year or get closer to my goal this year, but I won't get rich this year.
Yeah.
Rich is going to be a whole life activity. Yeah. And at the end, I'll look back and say, wow, I did good. I'll wake up one day 65 years and grayer than I am, right? And be like, wow, okay, we made it. Great. Awesome. I'm going to, I achieved these things, but I'm not going to be rich next year.
Yeah.
I'm not planning on it, at least. If it happens, amazing, but that's not the plan, right? Yeah. And our investments have to be made on a long timetable. Yeah. I'm not flipping properties, because my business isn't in flipping. It's not in the adding of value to real estate. It's in the maintaining of real estate, right? In the long-term values, right? So I'm not flipping out new properties every year, right? I'm acquiring more and paying them down slowly, right? So you have to know what the next 10, 20 years are going to look like and build the plan accordingly, and not be hyper concerned over what 2025 is going to be.
Yeah.
2020 is going to be 2025, and it's going to be a footnote down the road, right? When it's 2040 and you're looking back, you'll forget 2025.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the thing.
Let's talk about selling. So what's your take on 2025 market? Thinking of selling my house in spring or summer, but worried I might get less if I wait. Would love your thoughts. I'm in GTA.
So if I guess, this is where my mindset might be a little bit different. And, I'm thinking about it too. When's the optimum time to divest from real estate, right? Do I sell some condos right today? No, of course not. It doesn't make sense today. And it's going to be hard because each market and GTA is a big area, right? There's segments within the GTA that are better than other areas right now. If I own a house downtown, is a very different situation than if I own a condo downtown. Which is very different than if I own something in Etobicoke or own something out in Mississauga. You know, it is as where you go in the GTA can dictate a whole lot. You can't time markets, you know. We can get a feel for the activity within a market, but you can't really time them successfully because everything's, you know, all the data is 30 days old at least, you know, so anything optimum you probably miss because the data's 30 days looking back at least, you know. The market's going to be the market. When's it right for you, right? Did you profit? Right? Did you gain value? Do you need that equity position freed up, moved? You know, are you upgrading? Because, you know, if you're selling the home, what are you going to be doing with the money from it? Are you buying another home? Because, and here's the trick, you don't make money on your sale. You make money on your buy, right? The money's always made on the purchase, never the sale. Right. The sale is where we consolidate the earnings, where we realize the gains or the losses. Right. But you always make money on the purchase. So does it make more sense to buy this summer? Does it make more sense for me to purchase today? Right. Can I get better value on something I'm buying today, on the real estate class that I'm looking for today? Is there more value on the purchase versus my sale? So can I utilize the sale to make more money on the purchase? Right. I would just flip the entire script around on this.
And you know, like it's my example, right? So and obviously I was not profiting or anything. It was my primary home, my townhouse that I had in Kitchener, and I sold that and bought the house that, you know, hopefully will be my forever home. You know, downsize, right? So, and the reason why I took that decision was I actually bought first, and a lot of people actually gave me shit about, oh, why did you buy first in this market? Sold. The thing was that I wanted to buy first because I wanted to understand how low can I buy a particular asset. So I was able to buy a $1.4 million home for 1.2, and I had
right off the bat.
So this was 2021 early appraisal. 1.4 million was the value of the home. 2021 early, not at the peak, right? And I bought it for 1.2. Could have bought it for 1.18, but there were reasons why we could not do that. And then I was like, okay, now it makes sense to sell this. And I was willing to keep this as well, right? But it was just, you know, carpeted home. And I was like, okay, do I need tenants in this? No. I was like, okay, let's just sell this. I just upgraded. So here I sold, let's say this one at $50,000 lower, but I got a $200,000,
gain on the purchase.
Gain on the purchase. And this is all primary. So I'm not trying to make money, but I'm just trying to optimize my capital in the best way possible. So to answer your question, if you are selling right now and then buying something which is at a discount, sure, why not?
Yeah, you know, there's it's almost, you know, it's almost pornographic sometimes, the losses on real estate, and people fantasizing how much people are losing, right? And making it such a big deal, right? And it doesn't matter what I sell the property at, it matters what I bought it for. Right. And everyone, and I call it loss porn, right? Where you go on X, you go on, you know, TikTok, you see people like, oh, this property lost $500,000, right? They're not talking about they're talking about the difference from when you purchase to when you sell, right? If you're bought too high and you're selling too low, you're ass backwards on it, forgive me there, but you buy low, sell high. Right. So if you bought for cheaper than you're selling today, it doesn't matter what the market looks like. Right. So long as I can buy cheaper on the next one. Right.
For sure. What do you expect in 2025 with job market still bad, people losing jobs, and how is it going to influence the housing market? I mean, if you look at the market right now, everything is pointing, if you look at the mortgage rules, they have become more conducive to have more buyers in the market. If you look at the interest rates, they are more conducive for buyers to be in the market, and buyers are still not in the market. Not to that extent. And that is because of what this is. Job market is still shit. And we have high unemployment. We have people losing jobs. Businesses are not doing well. There's still the aftermath of COVID. It's still there. And with tariffs and Trump coming and all this looming, and there are still ongoing wars happening around the world,
and it could escalate. It's crazy. Like, I mean, jobs are going to be such an important part, because as I said, the key indicator of wealth is how much money you make, right? If you're going to be successful and wealthy, you're probably going to make a lot of cash, right? And so the ability to earn is always going to be a driving factor, right? The part that disturbed me the most over the past couple of years, right, has been the transition from private to public sector employment, right? And a massive transition from private to public sector in employment and job creation, right? The driving job creator should be the small business employer, not the federal government.
100%.
Not a provincial government, right? And so what this has shown has been a decrease in the number of entrepreneurs. And that is the scariest piece within the job market to me, right? If I was looking to do anything today, I would be a small business owner. I think there is an environment for smart people, insightful people, wise people to identify needs and come up with solutions for those needs, right? Every non-real estate investment I'm looking at today is in businesses. Right? Can I start a small business to fix this need, to meet this need, to achieve this goal, right? Because that's the great wealth indicator, right? If you build businesses and they're successful and they grow, right, you will generate wealth. Period.
And this is so critical, Matt. We have not talked about this, but next month, I'm still finalizing the venue. But next month, and I'm such a big believer in helping businesses grow, and that's exactly where my focus is at right now. We are doing a Grow Nation startup bootcamp, hopefully in Kitchen Republic Library, one of those weekends on February, and I intend to do that every month because I really feel that there is lack of education in community at large on you can build a small business and do better than what you have been doing in your job, and do so well for the economy as a whole. And it has to start small somewhere, right? It could be a lawn mowing company, it could be a landscaping company, it could be a what. I'm a huge fan of if there's one business that I feel will never go out of business is a landscaping business.
Funny enough, I was talking with one of my younger brothers, right? And he owns a landscaping business. And, he was asking me, should I buy a house? And I said, are you making $100,000 yet in your job? He said, no. I'm like, well, invest in your business until you're making $100,000 reliably a year. Until you have a small business generating $100,000. And that's not hard in a small business. I asked him, break it down. How many jobs do you have to do a month in order to achieve that number? And it's not a ton. I'm like, is this manageable on your own, or do you need employees, right? Build your business, create and control your source of income, right? Because here's the thing, nobody's ever firing me. I don't have to worry about being laid off. Am I going to have a good year and a bad year? Sure. But overall, do I make more every year moving forward? Sure. Right? Because I control the business I work in. Right. Is it market? All businesses are market dependent in some way, shape, or form. Right. So I'm going to diversify the businesses I'm an owner in. Right. I don't have to stay doing one business. You've done the same. You've diversified the businesses that you own, right? And the scope and scale of them over time, from one man operation to, multi-person operation in multiple provinces and states, on multiple platforms, right? You scale up to make yourself immune to localized market impacts, right? And there was a time where the entrepreneur was hailed as the king and looked on fondly and, you know, praised for their risk taking and their endeavors. And I feel like the loss of the past decade has been the loss of the entrepreneur's success story.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that we don't sing their praises, you know, a little hypocritical of us sitting here on the social media right now saying this, but, you know, the content creator is not the entrepreneur. It's just the vehicle by which you promote the job that you do, right?
Oh,
you know, when you talk to a young person today, they're going to say they want to be a content creator. Great. You know, that should be a piece of your business strategy, but what are you actually going to do for the world?
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, the ability to spot problems and solve them is so, you know, is so encouraging. You know,
we got problems plenty, right?
Yeah, so, right. I mean, you look out in the world, you're like, it's shitty. Great, fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it. Do something. Build the solution. Be the person that changes things for the better. You know, I looked into the mortgage industry years ago, and I'm like, I see a problem. You know, I'm a mortgage broker. My tool is a mortgage, right? But my problem was, you know, in the quality of training and support that agents were getting, right? My solution was to build the process by which my business educates, grows, and produces new mortgage agents, right? You know, you've gone through work with me, you know the way I teach and support, right? And this is such a valuable piece of what I saw, and you know, and it's funny. I tried to get away from it, right? I tried to walk away from the idea of helping people grow and educating, and I realized that it is my addiction. You know, I can never actually walk away from the desire to educate because at heart I'm an educator, right? And so that's the method by which I'm going to improve, you know, this where I find myself, right? That's my value add to life. You know, you may be someone that's great at, you know, beautifying things. You may have an artistic eye. You might have a you know, a can-do spirit. Take what embodies who you are and apply it to what you do. You know, you and I are the same. We're educators by nature.
Yeah.
You know, and so whatever job we create, whatever business we create is going to have an element of education in it. Right.
And when I say that, you know, I want to retire 1 million immigrants with $5 million, I say that in every video, everything that I do. I don't mean that I'll be doing 1 million mortgages. I just want to, you know, it could be building businesses that employs more six-figure, you know, businesses. Correct. And that's the goal, right? So when I say 1 million, if you just do the math on it, it's not going to work out on mortgages. I'll have to do more than 5,000 years, you know.
Yeah, you know.
So it's not, that's not the goal. The goal is to, you know, use mortgages and use social media as a vehicle to be able to be in a position to then start, you know, something that I'm starting next month with the Grow Nation Startup Bootcamp, where people come, we, you know, for 2 days, we brainstorm, we educate ourselves, and then we go out in the market and build that business up. So, and
that's amazing. Like, so, I'm so proud of, you know, where you've gone from the guy that brought me that PowerPoint presentation explaining, you know, how he was going to make this much money in this year and no one believes me, but here's my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to do it, right? To where you are today. Like, it's been just such a fun adventure to watch, right? And I'm very blessed to have been, you know, part of this journey with you. And still, you know, here, you know, and it's one of those things where and I think some people might look and say, oh, this is an overnight success, and it's not. You know, this is years of blood, sweat, and tears, of struggle, of ups and downs, of successes and failures, you know, headaches, you know, headache after headache after headache, and struggle, and, you know, and people don't see that as much as they see the end result, right? But you have to realize that as an entrepreneur, you have to focus on the wins, right? Because that's all people are going to see and hold to you, right? You know, and so celebrate your wins all the time. Celebrate your journey where you've come. Share it, you know, unashamed, right? You know, tell your story at every opportunity. There is something so satisfying about being an entrepreneur, and I think, you know, everyone should try it once.
For sure. You know, I always felt that, you know, I don't want to live in the regret of, you know, not knowing whether I would have been good as an entrepreneur. And that's why I got into it, right? And then I got into it 4 times. This is the 4th time I got into
it.
crazy, right? Like someone would call me crazy.
Yep.
But yeah, that's just that's just who we are, right?
Yeah.
So we'll take a few questions. We just have 5 or 6 very
Yep.
quickly, and then we'll close off. I know that it's been 1.5 hours now. So is Oshawa, there are houses around $700,000. It has a college, a university. Would house hacking in such area would be a good idea, and it's your commute? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
So if that works for you as a commute and you are living up and you're renting down,
Yep.
the only thing that I'll see, and Matt, just weigh in on that, very quickly, is that with people going out of Canada, if the amount of immigration that's going to go out, and I'm talking about students and working,
Yep.
because the amount of the people that are coming in, they'll be very highly skilled and they'll probably live in the condos if they are renting.
Correct.
But if you are looking at people who are living in the basement, you would not find. I
think that market's shrinking. Yeah,
that market will shrink, and just basing your real estate decision that there will be someone in the basement, it could be true. And it's not, we can't predict anything, but just by the mere sentiment of how that shift would happen in the next 3 years, especially with the new government coming in, I feel that, it'll not be.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think you should use house hacking as your yes or no. Should I invest in the real estate? Right. I like house hacking. I think it's important. I think it's something that you should do. I think the most valuable use of a laneway suite is my aging parents to live in there. I don't need them in my house. Thanks. I can put them outside. That's okay. They're happy. They've got lots of grass to play in and stuff, right? No, but I think house hacking for and extending your family and for helping to control those costs down the road is very valuable, right? I think that there is always going to be a student presence and a need for rental, but you cannot depend on your house purchase for that alone, right? It is a very potentially uncomfortable situation to live with strangers in your home. So you really have to ask yourself, is it something I want to do, right? Can I do it? Are we comfortable doing it? I can tell you right now, if I had a small child, I may not want to have a basement suite, right? I may be a little bit more protective of my space than if it's just me single alone, right? So there's going to be more to, is it a good idea based on just the numbers as well? Everything you said about Oshawa makes sense, right? Houses are in the 700s, colleges, universities, right? It's an hour commute from downtown. These things make sense, right? It could technically work. Do you want it to work? Is that the lifestyle you're looking for, right? Are you going to be 100% dependent on that rental income to qualify? Or is that the bonus that you're going to be earning that you can then redeploy to other asset classes, or to pay off the mortgage fast, or to prepare for another property, right? Am I going to utilize that house hack for something, right? I may not go into the market thinking that I'm going to house hack. I may say, okay, this property shows that it could be house hacked and that there's a benefit from it, so I'm going to do it because it works for me, right? Again, am I going to buy it based on the fundamentals of the real estate itself, right? And I would always buy a house that's hackable.
Yeah, makes sense. Because I increase the value of my house when I'm selling it, right?
Correct. Correct. Can I add value?
Yeah.
Do I intend to do it today? Maybe not, right? But do I want the option available? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So that's sort of my thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Let's take these questions very quickly. How do you see Ottawa's housing market as an investor?
It's government jobs.
Yeah.
Ottawa's government jobs.
Then, how does it matter, right? So if you're living in Ottawa, you want to buy in Ottawa, amazing. It's a good market. It's a capital city. It has never seen the ups and downs. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's pretty stable.
It's a very stable market, right? So
it's very much its own ecosystem. I think if I'm seeking real estate stability, Ottawa's awesome.
Yeah.
You'll never get a Toronto turn. You'll never see that. The ups and downs that happen in the Toronto market will not happen in the Ottawa market.
Yeah.
If I'm after stability and safety, I'm buying there.
Yeah. And even the rents will not go up significantly because government jobs pay as much, right? So, so because there are so many government jobs, it just moves with inflation, and therefore you don't even see the rents going up significantly there. Even though in the last 3 years they have, with the amount of people who have moved to Ottawa, but still it's not a tech. Even though Shopify has moved its headquarters,
if you look over the past 20 years as your benchmark for things, Ottawa's been pretty much.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you suggest buying a townhouse in Kitchener? I think we discussed this. 2 days a week, if you should be comfortable commuting that. It's 1.5 hours. Mississauga, you can't take a go to Mississauga. You'll have to drive, and I would say just make a commute during office hours and judge for yourself, and don't do it on a Saturday or a Friday. Do it on a Tuesday, right? On a Monday.
I absolutely hate traveling to Kitchener from downtown.
Oh, no.
Hate it. I dread.
Likewise.
Yeah, I dread it. If I'm gonna travel to Kitchener, I might as well just go all the way to London. It almost feels like an eternity to get to Kitchener, and then London, I'm there in a wink.
The problem is probably the gardener that you have. Right?
Yeah, right.
You would say the same thing about Mississauga. If I have to go to Mississauga, I'll probably go to London.
Yeah, to be honest, it's like to get to the outskirts of the GTA. Oh my goodness, I'd just rather go further at that point.
Absolutely. Townhouse in Guelph. Guelph is closer.
Mississauga's great,
right? So sorry.
Guelph to Mississauga is great.
Yeah,
you're not passing the scary zone.
Yeah.
Or you're just going into it a little bit, but you're kind of in that body or in that territory I hate to travel through. So you're going to be doing it anyways. So great. Yeah.
How will the housing market in Waterloo and Kitchener be affected if there's a decline in student population in the future? Now, it still has 2 universities.
Yeah.
Right? College, they have been abusing the education system for a long time, and I've said that even before all of this, right? So they have been abusing the education system for a long time.
And I think it's interesting when we are talking about schools, right?
Yeah.
I've never brought up the word college.
Yeah, it's university.
It's always universities, right? Colleges are crap. I'm not, and I don't mean that the education that you get there's crap, but trades education, things like that, amazing, right? Vocational training, amazing. But from a real estate sense, I don't care. They're 2-year programs. I don't care. It's not real education, right? We're talking, 4-year bachelors. We're talking masters. We're talking doctorates. We're talking, actual committed students to 4 to 12 years, right? Waterloo is freaking phenomenal. Why? What's the main intake for students there? Engineers and tech.
Yeah.
Great. And there's a diversity of that. You're gonna have a whole shakeup of people that go there, right? It's not all new immigrants. It's going to be people from everywhere fighting to get into this school. Right? I've got a cousin who's 13 and already thinking about how to get to Waterloo.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think you're safe if you bet on that horse. If you're thinking Conestoga is going to fill you with renters, probably for a while, but it's going to be not the group of renters you want. Right? I want dedicated students that are working, not party students. Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we talked about the rental market. Of course, it's going down. We are seeing, a lot of this now, especially in areas which are not very rental friendly. Do cap on immigration have affected rental leads in Kitchener? Absolutely. It has affected everything, right? It's not just immigration, right? It's also the ability for people to buy more and buy bigger and, or rent bigger, right? So loss of jobs, right? So it's everything.
Here's the thing that we haven't spoken about when we talk about rental yields, though. Mortgage rates are way down from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I just redid the mortgage on my owner occupied this week, right? And in 12 months, I'm down over 2% on interest rate.
Makes sense.
That's freed up, almost $1,000 a month in additional cash flow. There is another way to increase your rent to lease, right? And it may be time to sit down and do a renegotiation or a review of your mortgage, right? I'm going to put out a little piece here. If you're at 5.5 or greater, you must book a meeting.
Yeah.
You will. There is a vehicle to save money. If your rate today is over 5.5, you must book a meeting to have it reviewed. I don't care if there's 24, 48 months left. I don't care the time frame that's outstanding on there. I don't care if there's a penalty. I don't care about that stuff. If you're over 5.5% today, book a meeting, get a consultation done. You will save money.
That's exactly what we did with our clients, right? So we actually made a list of everyone, and I just announced in my WhatsApp group of my clients that anyone with a rate of 5.5 plus, let's just get on a call. And we did a group call. I explained everything there. It just makes sense, right? Because you do save dollars, not just, like absolute dollars, but also ongoing because you're paying less in interest.
It's significant. It's significant, the difference, right? And when you're dealing with renewals, refinances, things like that, it's not cheapest rate, it's best product.
Yeah.
Can I get a slightly higher rate with a cash offering instead of a refinance, right? Can I, are there avenues to access my equity now? Does it make sense to pay off and consolidate bills, right? I don't love refinancing to consolidate bills, but I would rather wrap up all my debt into a mortgage payment than have it in credit cards, right? I'd rather you not have credit card debt to begin with. But and so it is a sit down, evaluate the situation. People get very focused on interest rate, and we have to acknowledge that it's super important, but always number one priority, cash flow. And it could be in how the lender charges for property taxes. Are they taking too much, right? It could be in additional servicing costs that you weren't aware of, right? There could be cash flow elements that differentiate two very similar interest rates. And I was dealing with a client, and the non-mortgage pieces of this one client, when it came to servicing fees, property taxes, terrible creditor insurance program, right? We're paying $600 a month more on things that weren't directly impacting them in a positive way. And even if the rate was a couple points higher, it didn't make a difference. The cash flow difference was significant. So don't get super bogged down in 5, 10, 20 basis points. It's a dollar to dollar analysis that you need to be doing, right? And Nav, one of his guys, myself, whatever, our job is to sit down and go, you spend this much on your home, I can help you save this amount. You may only need to spend that much, right? And if you save dollars, you win. It's not about bragging about who's got the best rate, It's about bragging how much money you put into your pocket.
And how is your mortgage structured, right? Last question that we will take is, when is the SDU? I think this is the secondary dwelling unit, the loan to value 90 program that's coming. Have you heard about this? Like, obviously we have heard about this, but have you heard banks giving this?
I believe it's soon. That's been the narrative. So from the time that it was announced that you could do insured mortgages to 1.5 million to the time it actually made its way through the lenders was about 2 months roughly.
And I was having a chat with an insurer early this year, and she's like, we have still not received the guidelines from the government on how to actually do it. This is the insurer talking who is gonna endorse this program. And I'm like, that's bizarre. I have had a few BDMs, I'll obviously not name them, talk about, this government is a shit show because they just come up with rules without guidelines to the people who are going to implement the rules, which is bizarre, right? So
it's so Here's my number one recommendation. Follow some good mortgage and real estate professionals on social media. They will tell you when it's there.
Yeah.
They will be, yelling it from the rooftops. Hey, do this program now. It's available, blah, blah, blah. It will come at some point, maybe.
And it's honestly not a program for everyone, right?
No.
So you need significant equity. And I'm not a huge fan of going all the way to 90 loan to value on a $1.52 million home and going further in debt just so you can build a secondary unit that you may not be able to rent to people because there are less work permit and students in Canada.
This program is excellent for mom and dad.
Yeah.
This program exists for mom and dad. It is, and from my understanding, it's extremely crystal clear that this program does not exist for you to make money off of.
It's a multi-generational living. They're not trying to, even though they are saying and that was stupid and they took it back, they're trying to add units. This is not adding units. You can't buy a secondary unit. So that's not, the 1 something million, 4 million homes. This is not part of that. So this is just multi-generational living. It'll help with that. It's not something that you should make money off because you're paying a mass amount of money.
I'm pretty sure the program is going to be launched in such a way that it's going to be very restrictive towards anything that's not owner occupied and
you didn't think insurers would want to make money off it?
I'm pretty sure that they've never been really in that ballpark. They're like great. Do you live in it? Is it housing? Is it serving its need first and foremost? Right.
Of course,
Don't ever expect the government to help you make money.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not their job.
Oh, they made it clear. It has to be, like a primary home. So they made it clear in their guidelines when they launched. It's just not gone to the insurer yet, or hopefully it has. But that's very clear. But yeah, it's not for everyone. It's certainly not for anyone who has a 20% equity in their homes and they want to.
I mean, 10% equity left on a $2 million property scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And being lent on as is complete value. So we know that the 2 million is an as is complete value. It's not there yet.
Yeah.
You better know how to get that thing completed and that value to be there.
Yeah.
Because you do not want to be underwater with your roof missing.
And it's a funny program, and I don't know how the math will work on this, but they're saying that it will be not. So let's say you build a basement.
Yep.
And the value of the home from 900 has now moved to 1.1 because that's the closest comparable. And you spent, let's say, $70,000 on the basement. Yep. The guideline would clearly say that it's lower of the two. So it's not 1.1. That's the appraisal, 1.1. But it is 900 plus 70 that you spent, 970 or 1.1, whichever is lower.
Yes.
So they'll land on the lower.
Surprise.
I was not surprised with this, right? Right, but I that's the reason why I just delved deeper into it. Okay, and then I thought that is it even useful, and it'll just move people into debt. And honestly, Matt, we were talking about 30-year amortization on insured. What people are doing, and because I do a lot of insured mortgages, that's what the scariest thing is. And I'm trying to have people away from it, but they're not. Is that they are trying to increase their eligibility. So instead of buying the $400,000 home at a 30-year amortization and improving their cash flow, they're just buying the 430 home at 30 and keeping the
and that's a tariff. That's not that that's terrifying because that's not the idea, right?
And that will just drive the real estate market up because now you're just trading up on price, and the home that was worth 400, not even 400, right? If you look at the property assessments, it's not even 400, and now you're just paying more for that, and that will just attract more bidding. So I don't think these are solutions. These are just
and the nice thing too, if you want to do construction, like major renovation properly, right? The vehicle already exists. So I do a lot of construction financing, right? Yeah. That's sort of been my specialty, right?
But and it's improvement on the insurance side. So
so you either do purchase plus improvement, which is your base renovation on the time you buy, or you do renovation and construction financing, which can fall into second position behind your existing lender, right? It is done privately. Funds are issued in draws as you require it, right? And then you do a refinance to consolidate at the new value when it's done. The key piece about the construction financing, though, is you're typically tapped out at about 70% of as is complete value, right? So there is a strong equity position that exists already, and you have to have cash on hand to get through each draw process. So you're never going to be using money that doesn't exist, right? And then you recapitalize everything into a new mortgage at the end, right? That is a preferred method versus the SDUs.
Yes,
I think, if you're gonna go about it that way, again, my specialty is in this kind of mortgage. It's complicated, it's hard, it's a pain in the butt to do. There aren't a lot of lenders that do it, right? But there is a process by which you figure it out, right? I've got about 7 of them on the go right now. And they are all to add additional like renovations from single family to fourplexes. And
that's how it should be, right? That's how it's supposed to be. All these programs are just being used, and they're very gimmicky, I would say, right? So very few people would actually benefit from that. Thank you so much, Matt, for doing this.
Thanks for having me now.
1 hour, but with you and all the questions, it's never 1 hour, right? So
no. Gosh, no.
We always overrun. But this is amazing. We'll do it again. Thank you so much, guys, for all the questions. We missed a couple of questions. I did not ask any personal questions because I was flashing those questions on the screen. So I didn't want to flash your name and everything because I don't want the incomes to be visible there. So just book a call. You already know the website. And thank you so much, Matt. We'll do it again. And Matt, for anyone who is into construction, investors, like Matt is super amazing, and he's a mortgage agent as well, and he'll help you with all those things, and he's amazing at doing that, right? So
Shantz.ca,
Shantz.ca, right? So just reach out to him. Thank you so much, Matt. This was amazing.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Okay, now.
Bye.
Bye.